Alright, so I'm going to try to give a little demonstration here about how I changed Einstein's equation a little bit. How I fixed it up, made it a little bit better. So there it was originally, right? Let's switch over here, make it a little more convenient. Alright, this is a little strange trying to hold this and talk and do all this at once. Alright, so try to bear with me here. Try to figure out the best approach. And this is not a good one. I'm just going to do it like that. And I'm just going to try to keep it in one place. Alright, good. Alright, let's just draw a little circle around this guy. Okay? So that's energy, according to Einstein, right? Energy, matter, the universe, that's the equation. Alright? Alright, but there's just one question. One issue was with me was with this, with c squared. This is like they call this like the speed limit of light. Really? Right, like the speed limit of light. Like it's like a constant, but also they replace this with the real value of light and stuff like that. So it's kind of weird, but it's like this c squared, and it's kind of strange, right? And they say light has these properties. It's both a particle which can travel and have a distance, and time. It can travel through time. That's a particle, light. But they say light is also a wave. Like that. They say it's also a wave. They say light is a particle and a wave at the same time. Either or. That's what they say. Kind of like that. And then Einstein says that you just go ahead and square the actual speed limit. You square the speed limit, right? That's what he says. And it's kind of confusing to me. So I think of speed limits like 55 miles an hour speed limit on the road or something. What does it mean to square that? It would just be a higher speed limit. But if it's a speed limit of the universe, what does it mean to square that conceptually? That doesn't make any sense to me. So squaring this doesn't make any sense to me. It's really confusing to me, personally, trying to work physics out, trying to think about how it all works, right? It doesn't make any sense. However, you know what does make sense to me? Squaring this guy over here. Because what does that mean? Let's square him. Okay? Square him up. Let's square him up. Okay? Let's square him up. Let's square him up. Alright, what do we got here? Basically, just square it. When you have two waveforms, squaring it would just mean multiplying it with a very similar pattern. And so we have one pattern, and then we're squaring it, right? We're squaring it, and then we actually have the actual interference, right? So then look what we have as a result. Alright, one pattern. Now, the second pattern is very close, but slightly off in some places, but real close, because you're squaring it. Speed of light, but it's relative, right? It always changes. Every single second it always changes. So we have now two things, right? Because those are those two. We just put them next to each other. Imagine those ones I just drew right there, literally, just transposed because they're a little off, wonky. Put them over top of each other, and then you get a new one. It describes the difference between them over time. Okay? So, that's 3. So you have actually 3 things when you square this, actually. Light, like that, right? You have 3 entities. And this third thing is the emergent one. The emergent one. Okay? So it says if we take 2 speed limits, which are like 0, kind of like a 0 limit, and you actually get 1, the emergent one. And then you have 3 in total, right? 1, 2, 3 things. 1, 2, 3 things, right? But this is like a 0 speed limit type weird thing. But it's like a wave and a particle at the same time, wave and a particle at the same time. And then all of a sudden you get a 1, the emergent one. Okay. So you have 3 things. Okay, cool. Whatever that means. Okay. So now we're on to something about this, right? We're on to something about this. So what's interesting is that this process here, it's like going from these two waveform patterns. It's very interesting. That's like emergence. That process. So it's sense making. Tuning. And all those real smart guys were on to the fact that this is about frequencies, this is about tuning the universe. All these Nikola Tesla, you look at all this stuff, it's about tuning frequencies and things like that. So this is what they were onto. They're starting, Einstein was starting it with the speed of light thing, right? Squaring the speed of light didn't make sense conceptually, but once you get into it a little bit more and break it out in the details, then you realize what's actually happening a little bit more. Alright, so let's keep on going. So now Einstein he considered one form of energy, the one form of energy. Like the fundamental form, right? But what did we say about the emergent one? Down here. What did we say about that emergent one? It was actually a composition of these two things interacting. That's what we said about that emergent one. So now let's look at Einstein's emergent one. It's a combination of two things interacting. Right? Right? So it's got two things on there. Okay? Like that. So then what happens, this little situation like that. Your two things sending off a signal, each unique signal, and then there's a vortex in the middle where it meets and it's emergent one. Alright, that's the tuning of those two signals right there. That signal plus that signal in there to match this third, right? This is the emergent third, the emergent one. There's one form of energy, and it's the emergent one. And that's that emergent one right there. When you 0 plus 0 equals 1, it's strange, right? But anyhow, Einstein was onto it here. So he's got his one form of energy, but there's actually two things composing the energy. Mental, physical. Alright, this is physical energy down here. Physical. You can't really see the other one. Okay, physical energy down here in this big whole thing. Alright? So you have these two forces coming together, and two energy forms coming together to provide the energy form that we see out in the world, right? But what Einstein missed, right? What Einstein missed is that when energy goes back and forth between these two, between physical reality and the mind, right? We eat food and we transform the energy into thoughts, and those thoughts become culture, right? And that culture propels humanity. So this is culture and experience, and it's part of the energy transmission, culture and experience. We actually build conceptual structures in our head by concentrating really hard and becoming really good at thinking in different domains, and then building up these conceptual structures that other people can use to grant them additional intelligence and effectiveness for interacting with the world. So this is the enactive model of continuous cognition as applied to Einstein's theory, right? So now what do we have? We have two different forms of mental energy. And so now we have energy mental equals mental resources, right, times c squared, mental matter times c squared. And then we have, gosh, this is so messy. So now we have energy physical equals energy matter physical times c squared, right? And c squared on both sides is just sense-making process, right? And they're just going to balance out in this process, like you looked at down here with the two waveforms, right? We balance out in that process to give us that one emergent one that Einstein had created, right? So Einstein came up with the emergent one, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't the answer. It wasn't the fabric of the universe. Basically, all he did was create the one emergent particle, right? But we didn't see what was behind that emergent. So his equation itself was like the particle version of his equation. So all we did was figure out the wave function for his own equation, right? So how did you figure out the wave function of Einstein's equation? Well, there's one final version of the equation, right? E equals mc squared. Oh, mother of mine. Okay, mother of mine, let's draw it right here. E equals mc squared. Square it. Boom. And that gives you the whole system. How? Because if you take E equals mc squared as one thing, imagine it, one down here. You square it, multiply it with itself, and you actually get a third thing. You get 3 in total if you just take this one equation, square it with, because it's actually a waveform, right? It's a waveform of light. So when you square it, you get 3 things, and 1, 2, 3, 3 different forms of energy: mental, physical, and the emergent interaction between the two, which transforms physical energy into mental energy that can be repeated throughout history, that stays there. So it's an investment, right, of concentration on the form of consciousness. So this model includes consciousness in it, and that's why it fixes all the errors that Einstein made. And it's beautiful. So that adds value.